Okay, so we are not on the next pasuk. I think this is the pasuk after that. Is that what I said in the chat? I'm just gonna make sure that's what I said. Um, yeah, I think the next pasuk that we were supposed to be on was 13:4, but we did that one at the end of June 2022, and it's still gonna be too fresh in my mind, and I kind of wanna I'm doing the push for finishing all the prakim in the middle. So we're gonna do this next one. If you're interested in a shiur on Mishlei 13:4, then I guess I can send out the link later. Okay, so here we got a pasuk, and as you can see, this is going to be a difficult one to translate here. Okay, we're gonna have three translations, maybe even four. Davar sheker yisna tzadik, v'rasha yavish v'yachpir. And not only is this a multi-option translation, but the syntax and grammar are really weird. Okay, so with that intro, anyone want to try tackling the translation? At least for the first half. Davar sheker yisna tzadik.
A tzaddik will hate a false thing.
Okay, good. So you translated it the correct way. Okay, so a tzaddik will hate a false thing or a false matter. Okay, or I guess you say false statement. All right. Now, when I said that you got it the right way, what would be the wrong but literal way to translate it?
A false matter or false thing hates a tzaddik.
Exactly, right? So if you translate it in order, it is a false matter or false thing hates a tzaddik, which just doesn't really make sense because false things don't hate people, right? The one who I saw in the English that translated it like that, or not like that, but he preserved that. Alter usually tries preserving the structure. A lying word the righteous hates, so he's preserving the order there. So a false statement a tzaddik hates. Okay, fine. Okay, but then we got this ambiguous thing. V'rasha yavish v'yachpir. Okay, so I'll go ahead and right away help you with the ba'ash is to have a bad smell or to stink. Okay, to emit a stinking odor, to cause to stink. Okay, those are two different things. And then yachpir is to be abashed or to be ashamed. Okay, but the confusion here. Okay, so I always get these mixed up. An intransitive verb, I think I know this, is a verb that doesn't have an object. Okay, so for example, you can say like if you say he ran to the store, run doesn't have an object, it's just the verb. Okay, but you could also have certain verbs that are transitive where it means they do have an object. So you could say I ran errands for you. Okay, so there it has an object. Okay, so if ba'ash means to stink or to have a bad smell, and yachpir means to be ashamed. Okay, anyone want to try translating the second half in one of these ways? Just you can ignore which these slots. I'll slot it in for you.
Answer Russia will smell bad and be embarrassed.
Okay, good. Right. So but a Russia, so that's a wicked person, will, I'm just gonna say stink just because it's one word, will stink and be ashamed. Okay, so that's the intransitive version. So he stinks and he is ashamed. Okay, so what would be then another way to translate it where the verbs stink and ashamed have objects?
Like a Russia's thing will stink and be ashamed.
A Russia what?
Like I guess taking the word davar from the first half and like davar Russia yavish, like the word, like the things of a Russia.
Okay, so I don't think you could take that. That is a creative reading, but I think the davar sheker is going to be because I think Russia is a person and sheker is a actually okay, yeah. I don't think you could take it, but I don't know if I can explain why.
Well, I mean, wait, what do you? I'm not sure what you mean. Like, why can you read, not like davar sheker as in like Russia sheker? I mean like
I don't think you could put davar into the second. I don't think you could put davar in between the and Russia. I'm not sure why, but I don't think you can.
Okay.
We'll see if any of the Mefarshim say that. I didn't see any of them say that. By the way, I'm cheating. By the way, I'm going off of the Meiri. The Meiri is the one who gave me these three things. Okay, so the second way to say it is, but a Russia causes stinking and shame. Okay, so he like causes someone else, or I guess he makes something or someone stinking and shame. Okay, and then the third way is, but a tzaddik makes the Russia stink and be ashamed. It's possible you could even have a fourth one. Oops, sorry, hold on a second here. What if there is? Do you think there's a fourth one? Let's try it out. Also transitive. Russia. I think you might be able to say, but maybe this is what Ariel's intuition was picking up on, but a false thing, matter, or statement makes a Russia stink or be ashamed. Okay, I don't know if that's a legitimate one, but let me just show you in the Meiri just so you can see where I've gotten this from. So the Meiri says three possibilities. We're not gonna do the whole Meiri right now, but so the first one is he says Yavish v'yachbir hine omdim. Okay, I always get the pull omid is an intransitive verb. Kamo hiv ishu nimaku v'lo hivish v'rimo lo haisabu. Okay, I don't know what the first one is, but this is about the mun. It says the mun didn't rot, so it doesn't mean it didn't rot other things. It didn't rot, or it didn't spoil. And then v'chein hichpir Lebanon, Lebanon will be ashamed. Kilo tachpiri. Means that they will be despised. Okay, fine. Then he gives an explanation. Second one, some say that both of these are transitive. Yavish yabia asher hivashtem es rechenu. For example, this is about the who's that about Moshe or about? Hold on a second. I forgot who it's talking about here. I know it's about Bnei Israel in the eyes of the Egyptians. 5:23 is. Yeah, this is Moshe talking to Hashem. Since I came to Paro to speak in your name, he brought harm to this people. You have no, that's not. Oh, here we go. It's 21. He vashtem es rechenu. You have befouled us in the eyes of Paro. Okay, so to befoul. Where is it here? Okay. Shaharasha yavish hatzadik v'achpireo. Oh, so that's interesting. That is slightly different. So he's saying that the Russia will okay. Let's just go with the Meiri here, just so we have someone to rely on. The Russia makes the tzaddik okay, stink and be ashamed. Okay, and then the third one that the Meiri says is he says. It's possible that all both these verbs go back on the tzaddik. Harasha who pol, and the Russia is the one who's acted upon. Klomer shed tzaddik sone kol davar sheker. The tzaddik hates every false thing. Umevish umavish harasha etzel bnei adam, and he makes the Russia stinky and ashamed to other people. Okay, let's actually just stick with these three for now. Okay, I think that's enough on our plate. Okay, so those are the three translations. Let's see what else the minimalist Mefarshim say. Okay, so Mitzvah Sion says Yavish is Retzalam Yimas Hadavar Hanivash. Kid Davar Hanivash. He will spoil like something that is rotten or like something that is stinky. V'yachbir is inyan busha kmo v'chafra levana. Yachbir means to be ashamed. So it looks like he's taking the first translation. Okay. Sadigon says Yavish is Yera. He will v'asa ra lacherim. He will make something else bad. Okay, so that sounds like he's taking the second one. Pasad kilkul v'kan hara'a v'hakan yera v'yachpir klomer yivaze acherim. So he'll like disparage others. Okay, fine. So Sadiq going to take that. We're not even going to attempt to get into the Aramaic grammar because I don't know Aramaic grammar. This is ambiguous enough. Malbim says Yavish is kamo asher hivashim es rechenu. So he's taking the second translation here. Okay, fine. Art Scroll says a righteous person despises a false matter, but a wicked person sullies and insults. So that's interesting. So Art Scroll is taking the second one. Okay, meaning that they make something like dirty or stinky or rotten, and I guess insults is kind of like hedging there. Rav Hirsch says a righteous man hates an untrue word, but a wicked man makes everything more shameful and contemptible. So he's also going with the second one. And Alter says a lying word the righteous hates, but the wicked is stinking and vile. Okay, so sounds like the first two translations here are going to be the most popular. but we'll keep the third one since the Meiri mentions it.
I kind of actually love the third one
Yeah,
because
okay, good. Fight for
yeah,
it.
when you first said it, I was like, oh, first of all, I feel like it just reads very smoothly.
It does. Yeah, because
And then
Tzadik is the only one acting here.
exactly. And then
Yeah.
also what's cool about it is that like in general, okay, like we've seen this, like been there, done that, where you compare the Russia and the Tzadik.
Yeah.
But with this translation, you're comparing the Dvar Sheker to the Russia as opposed to
That's a good
Russia's
one.
action
Okay,
to
that's a
Tzadik.
great point. Okay, good. So just to articulate why Mayan likes this, okay, because it simplifies it because the only actor in the pasuk then is the tzaddik. The tzaddik hates a devar sheker, a false matter, and the tzaddik stinkifies and shames the Russia. So it's talking about how the tzaddik relates to the devar sheker and how the tzaddik relates to the Russia. Yeah, that's good. Okay, I like having those there. Okay, so let's do our questions and problems. But if your question is specific to one of the translations, just let me know at the outside of the question so I can make a note of it. Okay, what are the questions? Yeah, Rivki.
So how is the first half a chiddush, and if it isn't, then are we supposed to take from the second half to get a chiddush?
Okay, good question. So the first half seems obvious. Of course, a tzaddik hates a false thing. Okay, so is there? I like the way you expanded the methodology of this. Okay, is there a chiddush, okay, a new insight in the first half alone, or does the chiddush emerge from the second half or the two in conjunction? Okay, that's like the full form of the question. Why did this stop typing? Good question. Good question. It just stopped. So there we go. Yeah. Okay. Ariel.
Yeah, what are the two halves of the pasuk?
Okay. Yeah. So what is the relationship between the two halves? Okay, according to each translation, right? So according to the first translation, then I think the first translation, it's interesting. Okay, whatever. According to both of them, they're a little bit difficult to be opposites, right? That the tzaddik hates a false thing, but the Russia is stinky and ashamed. That they seem completely unrelated. Second one, a tzaddik hates a false thing, but the Russia makes the tzaddik stink. So at least they're interacting with each other, but still is kind of far away. And then the third one is the most opposite-y, but it's not really opposites, like Mayan pointed out, because it's talking about the tzaddik's attitude towards the Dvar Sheker and the tzaddik's attitude towards the Russia. So yeah. So what is the relation between the two halves? Okay, good. Yala.
Okay, so what exactly does yisna mean? And more specifically, like, is it just like a feeling that he has towards it, or is there an action that the tzaddik is taking based off of the hatred?
Great question. Greatly formulated question. Greatly. What does hate mean in this context? Is it just a feeling, or is it accompanied by an action? Yeah, Ariel.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One is when the pasuk uses the word yavish and v'yachper, what is each one, what's each one's message, or what's each one adding?
Okay.
And
what do yeah, you know what? Maybe stink is the wrong word. I'm gonna add in just for clarity here, spoil, because I'm not sure which is the primary one. I don't know if the main meaning is to spoil, and because spoiled things stink, then we associate with stinking, or if it's the other way around. Okay, so what do yavish stink and spoil, and yach here shame mean, and then what is their relationship? Okay.
Yeah, and I guess to expand on that question, to me it seems like, a shame, if you just had the word, let's just spoil, whatever, I feel like if you're spoiled, then it's kind of like you should automatically be ashamed of yourself, or it's shaming. So like, what is it adding by saying the word ashamed?
Okay, so in other words,
Yeah.
like why? I'll just say it the way that you initially said. Why do you need both?
Right. Okay. Fine.
You want to hear a dumb question? It's
Sure.
either dumb or Noah really, really likes this. It's just an association more than a question. Which is that I just noticed that the Yavish and Yachpir are related, are subtle literary references to the first two plagues, right? Because you have with Dam, I think, Vayachbru kol Mitzrayim sevivos hayor, Maim lishtos. All the Egyptians dug around the Nile to for water to drink. So Yachpir, I don't know why Yach Chafar means to be ashamed and also to dig. I don't know if it's because like you dig your face into something. And then by the frogs, it says, oh, it's not, I know, it's all the first plague. What am I saying? It's the first plague. It also says the second plague, but when the water, the Nile turns to blood, it says vayivash hayor. The water stank. The river stank. Yeah. I'm gonna put this in here just for kicks here because no one else is gonna ask this question. Okay. Is there an actual literary reference to the plague of blood? Seeing as how the pasuk, the pasukim there use the verbs yavish, or sorry, I guess ba'ash and chafar. Okay, if so, what is the I guess parallel? Yeah, all right, that's a bad question, but yeah, Rivki.
So two questions. One is, what are the like active, I guess, steps that they're doing? Like, I feel like just hating something, like that's like something that you get to from ideology or whatever, but I feel like it's not necessarily like a practical thing.
Okay, is that different than Ayala's question of what does hate mean? Is it just a feeling or is it accompanied by an action?
I mean, I feel like the only difference is that I'm adding that, like, I guess the question is really, what are they doing? Like, because I feel like hating isn't necessarily something that we say is like a practical thing that we do in Mishlei. It's like, oh, well, like, if you do this and you'll get that. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Um,
Like, I just
um,
like, hate is a practical thing that you're doing to get a result necessarily.
okay, so are you asking why does the tzaddik hate the Dvar Sheker?
I guess, because I'm just asking, what are both of them doing? Like,
Okay.
in pasuk.
Okay, yeah. So unclear whether they're both doing something, right? I think that's what's confusing me here is because Ayala is already identifying, is he even doing anything? But let's just ask this question as the counterpart to the obvious question, which is alternatively, why does the tzaddik hate a false thing? Okay, and then like, what does this accomplish? Okay, I think is what you're getting at.
Exactly. And then like, what are the consequences of that?
Yeah. What are the benefits or consequences of this? Okay, and then you're asking the second question, the same question about the second half?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, likewise, what is the Russia, oh, sorry, I guess according to translations 2a and possibly 1, what is the Russia doing in the second half? And I say definitely 2a because he's definitely acting here in the second half. 2b, he's being acted upon. And then 1, it's not clear whether he's doing something or it's just happening to him. Yeah. Okay, good. Right. Yeah. Ayala?
I don't think it was asked yet, but who's the audience of this pasuk?
Okay, right. Who is the audience of this pasuk? And we might as well ask the other question: what is the practical decision-making advice? I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this into the translation into the chat because we're definitely going to want to have that on hand. Yeah, Ariel.
Yeah. What's the subject of this puzzle?
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the subject of this pasuk.
And also, like, did we ask what the scenario is?
No. Yeah, okay. Let's say here, what is, I guess, is this pasuk about a specific scenario? If so, what is it? I think we need to ask a question. Maybe this was already asked by somebody, but let's see here. So according to all of them, yeah, I guess what is the consequence of the second half of the pasuk, right? So whether you say it is the Russia himself just stinking and being ashamed, or whether it is the Russia making the Tzadik stink and spoil and be ashamed, or whether it's the Tzadik making the Russia do that. Who cares? Right? Who cares? Okay.
Can you elaborate on your question?
Yeah, meaning like if I say, your food is going to spoil, so then that makes sense why I would care about that, because spoiled food can't be eaten. If I say that your reputation is going to spoil, then that also makes sense because that's going to impede your goals. But if I just say that the Russia will spoil, like what does that entail? Why should I care about that? Or if I say that the Russia makes the tzaddik stink or spoil, so then that's clear why we would care about that, because it would be bad for the tzaddik and bad for people. But if I say that the tzaddik will make the Russia spoil, like why do we care about that also? So just depending on what we say the consequence is, then that'll affect what the practical advice is here. Yeah, Ariel?
Yeah, who threw in a tzaddik in there that the Russia makes the tzaddik spoil?
So the Meiri mentioned that as one possibility, and the place he gets that from is if these are transitive verbs, then they need an object. So if it's saying the Russia, so it'd be saying like the Russia spoils and shames and then it just has a blank. So the only other object in the pasuk is the tzaddik. Unless you go with our, I'm gonna throw it in here anyway, our shadowy third translation, okay, which is but a false statement. No, that doesn't work, because then if you say that the false statement, wait,
right?
No, hold on, maybe that'll work. But a false statement, but a Russia makes the false statement spoil and be ashamed. Okay, that still sounds weird. I don't think it's gonna be true. But in other words, the point is that if you're gonna state that this is a transitive thing, then you need an object, and the only available or the most readily available object is the tzaddik.
Right? Is it crazy to say that it could be anyone, not just a tzaddik?
No, that's not crazy actually.
I don't know why. Like, okay, maybe I'm like already intuiting an idea here, but I'm trying not to say it. But like to me, like I don't know, is it possible for a Russia to? Well, I guess
I do actually think I remember seeing someone say that. So I'm gonna switch this around here. I think this is gonna be the way we have to go here. So hold on. So a Russia makes oh sorry, hold on a second. No, I meant to do this. But a Russia makes others spoil and be ashamed. You're saying like he's doing that to someone else. Okay, yeah. I do think I actually recall seeing that in the Mepharshim. All right. So you know what? Let me can I delete this? Yeah, I can delete this. Okay, and then let me repost this here. Okay, there we go. Ayala?
So what is in the second half, whichever translation we're using, what are they ashamed of? Is it about they're ashamed of the spoiling, or is it something else?
Okay, right. So I'm gonna tack that onto 7. What is there a relationship? I guess what is the shamed person ashamed of? And then like, is this shame connected to the spoilage? Yeah. Whew. Weird pasuk. Okay, I feel like we got the main questions. So let me copy and paste these into the chat, and then we have a work cut out for us. Okay, let's go with 1 through 5. And then let's go with 6 through 10. Okay. Tough. Thinking minute. I mean, what I would suggest, by the way, is focusing on the first half, right? Because that's going to be the least disputed one.
It's funny because I have an idea for the second half.
That's also fine. I mean,
I don't.
nothing wrong with it. Okay, Yosef, you want to go?
Yeah, so I guess, can you guys hear me?
Yes, but it sounds pretty bad. We'll see what happens.
I could try to. So I was thinking that maybe it's talking about like a Tzadik's relationship to two types of things. One is like an idea, right? And so I think it's saying that relating to a Devar Sheker, a false statement, right? Or just a matter or theory itself, because he's involved in the realm of thinking, he can be opposed to that and he can actually act against that, right? But when it comes to an individual who, especially Russia, who is trained in basically deceiving people, they're going to be ahead of him and they can either corrupt him or they're just going to, he's going to lose out against them, right? In the realm of competing with the individual in Russia, the Russia can win because he has just more experience with just fighting with people.
Okay, I got like maybe 70% of that, but I should have asked you at the outset though. Are you going with a particular translation?
Yeah, I'm going with the translation. I think 2a.
2a. Okay, so a tzaddik will hate a false thing, and a rasha will make the tzaddik stink and be spoiled. Okay, so in other words, the tzaddik hates falsehood in the abstract, as an abstract thing because it is going to. I mean, I don't know if this is what you said because I didn't quite get all of it, but basically, like if you think about the way the tzaddik operates, falsehood is going to really be an obstacle or antithetical to his mission, which is to like, bring things in line with reality, like understand things in terms of what they actually are, and then help bring people in line with the objective, functioning system. So that's why he hates Dvar Sheker. Is that accurate?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then the rasha is, but the Dvar Sheker though can't really, I guess, Sheker itself, falsehood itself, can't really impact the tzaddik, but a rasha is an actual agent of falsehood, and the rasha can act on the tzaddik, and can interfere with him by these two means, I guess, by the spoiling him and shaming him.
Yeah, I think that because like a tzaddik is often not as involved in like, the realm of he's not as involved in the realm of like just the social in terms of like deceit, right? The Russia's going to beat him at deceit, right? And so it's going to be much harder he's going to make him stink or spoil because it's I'm not distinguishing I'm not really going to distinguish between the two because I'm not really sure if I have that, but maybe there's more ideas that I'm just not sure. But I think it's saying that the Russia's going to be like by Yaakov Avinu. He couldn't naturally beat out Lavan. Rachel told him that, right? Is that like you're not going to beat him out, right? You're not as involved in deceit as he is, and you can just beat him out. So I think it's saying that the Russia just is an advantage over you, and so it's very hard for the tzaddik to win that area, right? Even though he's like theologically opposed to,
Okay, so let me just try stating that because it's very, very hard to hear you. But so the Tzadik is at a real disadvantage because first of all, he's not really operating the social realm. Like he doesn't care about social success in the same way that the Russia does. And the Russia is not only like operating there, but he's very, very like influential in that realm, and he can totally just ruin the Tzaddik's reputation in a way that is going to like really cripple the Tzaddik's ability to act. Yeah. So then the question is Mishlei telling you like, what is Mishlei telling you to do? Oh, he says, so Yosef says in the chat, he's not in the realm of deceit like the Russia and isn't involved in the social in the same way, right?
Yeah, I think it's saying it's like advice where you should that you should look at an awareness of a tzaddik that is added to advantage and needs to be extra aware. Right?
Yeah.
In terms of the danger of the rush. In other words, it's not promoting rushes.
Right.
It's not saying rush is an advantage. It's just saying that because your framework is just different, right?
Okay.
You're not going to be on the same playing field, and you should be aware of it.
So I'm going to say, I don't know if the Achilles heel is the proper term here, but I'm going to use it anyway because who gets to use that? Okay. So the pasuk is pointing out an Achilles heel of the tzaddik. Okay, namely, his susceptibility to the slander of the Russia. Okay, the tzaddik hates falsehood because it's antithetical to all of his to his value system and his actual goals. But the Russia wields it as his main tool. Okay, the tzaddik. So unlike the Russia, the tzaddik is not as proficient in the like social rat race, and will like and therefore, whereas this is the Russia's arena. So unless the tzaddik guards himself, the Russia will be able to cause a lot of damage to the tzaddik in people's eyes, and this will harm the tzaddik's agenda. Yeah. Okay, so I think this is a good approach and definitely fits into the words. I think the only question I guess two questions that I have now are, one is, so what is the tzaddik supposed to do? Is the pasuk just saying like, this is why if the tzaddik is ever in a position to like take down the Russia, then he should really do that because all the Russia needs is like this foothold of falsehood, and then they'll take him down. So I like, what is the tzaddik supposed to do? And then the second thing I want to note here is, why does it have to highlight the fact that the tzaddik hates Dvar Sheker? Like, it's a true statement, I just don't feel like it's necessary for the idea. Yeah, Yosef?
It's against what I'm speaking, because I think it's saying that two things. That one is that the first answer is Dvar Sheker thing is that it's two separate. It's first of all, I'll answer the other question first. It's telling the tzaddik to study psychology. Essentially, it's telling him that he needs to be familiarize himself with Sheker, right? Mm-hmm. And even though it's not his framework, he needs to be familiar with it, right? And that because of that, it's really saying that requirement is a separate study than your real study, which is against all of Dvar Sheker. Meaning, it doesn't matter how familiar you are with truth, right? Yeah. Study of psychology is a separate thing, right? The emotions are false, are not really tied to reality, right? You can be very involved in metaphysics but not know how to deal with people, right? And so it's saying, as much as a high level you're on, right? Like Yaakov Avinu was a genius, but he could not defeat Lavan in terms of the situation of Rach, right? Because he was just not at the level of deceit that Lavan was at, right? You couldn't beat him, right? Yeah. And so it's saying, no matter how much of a chacham you are, you need to have a separate study of psychology for you to really be able to win, right? And in these fights.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Okay, good. What I wrote here, just to read what I drew, the practical application is that the Tzadik will need to overcome his hatred of sheker in order to thwart the Russia. This may require an investment of time and energy that the Tzadik is reluctant to make, but he's going to need to do this. I mean, I think we're all thinking about this, right? Is that like, there's a lot of sheker going on right now against Israel, and it is tempting, and I'm certainly tempted by this to just say like, okay, forget that, like there's no way to win. But the reality is that people do a lot of damage to the reputation of people who are standing up for Tzadik and MS, and like you need to learn that in order to like to get around that. If you really, in other words, if you really, the Tzadik might say, well, I hate sheker, I'm not going to be involved in that world. But if he realizes how much of a threat the Russia poses, then he'll engage in that. I mean, another example of this is you see like Rishonim and Achronim who devoted, and even modern people who devote a lot of time and energy to combating sheker in various areas. Like there are a lot of Rishonim and Achronim who like fought against the Christian polemicists, or against the Muslim ones, who were trying to like distort Torah. And I'm sure if they had their choice, they would rather be involved learning Gemara, but like they have to combat this because it's causing real damage. Okay, that's a good approach. All right, thanks, Yosef. I'm glad we got to hear it, even though it was like very hard to hear. Ayala, you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
I know we also talked a lot about how, and I think there's like one specific pasuk that I'm thinking of about how the Russia ultimately will fall.
Yeah.
And like that's something that we talk about a lot, about how like the Tzadik, because he's attached to truth, will ultimately like last out and outlive the Russia. So how, like practically speaking, do those two ideas, like that
That's a good
idea and
question.
then this idea?
Right. So the question. Let me just restate the question here. So the question is, you have lots of psukim in Mishlei and Tehillim about how, first of all, in general, about how the Tzadik will ultimately prevail and the Russia will fall. And secondly, about how truth will ultimately prevail and falsehood will ultimately not last. And I just want to read an example of this recently that we did in, was it chapter 12, probably, because we just started chapter 13. Argia. Sfas emes tikon la'ad, V'ad argia lashon shaker. This is Mishlei 12:19. True lips are established forever, but a false tongue is only for a moment. So the question is, how do you reconcile that, which makes falsehood seem like impotent and not lasting, with our pasuk, which according to Yosef makes falsehood sound like it could do some real damage? Yeah, Yosef, you want to answer?
Yeah, because this is teaching you the derech. In other words, it's teaching you that pasuk is assuming this pasuk. Basically saying is that like. This pasuk is not saying that the Russia is going to win, right? This is just teaching you the danger of Russia, right? And so the other pasuk is saying, if you really do follow Chachma, right, you're going to follow this pasuk as well and realize the danger of the Russia, right? And combat it with that framework. But so Tzadik, if he's following Chachma, right, will win. But it's just saying there's a certain, you have to this is teaching you this is that content of Chachma that which he needs to follow. Is that recognize this danger of the Russia and follow this derech, and you'll win. But if you don't recognize the danger of the Russia, right? If you just looked at the other person and just said, okay, I'm a chacham, I'll win, right?
Yeah.
But you don't actually engage in the chacham itself, and I think this is that chacham, recognizing that danger and recognizing and just recognizing what the Russia is capable of, right?
Yeah.
That's the issue that this pasuk is bringing up, is that the Russia is a legitimate danger. He's not just a thing that will just fizzle away. You need to deal with him as a legitimate danger. He can spoil it.
Right.
I think that's what this pasuk is teaching us.
Okay, yeah. So I agree with everything Yosef saying, that that there is a derech in terms of the overall approach to life. Then the approach of life that revolves around or uses falsehood is destined to fail, and the one that is centered around truth will succeed. But this is warning him that he needs to he can't just let this fester. He can't just let the Russia go. And I'm just going to add one small point, which I think is implicit in what you're saying, is that, yeah, that's true, but the Russia can do a lot of damage in the meantime. Like it might be that the truth ultimately comes out, or that the falsehood ultimately is exposed, but like this could take a long time and a lot of damage can be done on the way. One example, I mean, whatever, I'll give two examples. One example is like, in many areas of Jewish history, you could slander a tzaddik to the government, and then tzaddik just gets killed or just put in jail for the rest of his life, and like that will be, it's very nice that the tzaddik is involved in the derech of truth, but like the Russia could do like a huge blow to him. And another example of this, which I always bring up when we talk about these things, is like I was just watching another YouTube video about North Korea, and like that sheker has been going on for a dynasty now, for decades, and yeah, eventually it will collapse, but lots of people are dying and getting harmed in the meantime, But I'm glad you asked that question, Ayala, because that does bring out both truths in Mishlei. Okay, new approach or different idea. Rivki, you're up.
Okay, so I think that mine is on 2C.
Okay.
And it's funny because I feel like it's very like the opposite of basically what was just said a little bit.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that like what's like the chiddush with like hate? That's really what I was focusing on.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to make them to make a Russia stink and like be ashamed? So the first thing that I thought of was literally Esther and how like that whole story with like Mordecai and Haman, and how like Mordecai, I feel like I could just use it and like it'll show like what I'm trying to say. That obviously, like, we know Mordecai's values were like very like good and pure, and he obviously was like a chacham, whatever you want to say, a tzaddik. And Haman was obviously the complete opposite of that. And I feel like that even though like the pasuk doesn't have to say like to hate a bad person, because it's not necessarily the person that you're hating, but it's the things that they're doing with their like humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that point. And also, so yeah, basically just saying that like, and then you see Haman's reaction to that is the consequence for himself. Like that Russia, like, I don't know if it's as much the tzaddik doing anything to the Russia, like what Yosef was saying, as much as it just being a natural consequence of Russia's like, obviously their goal is to like, quote unquote, convert people to like their ways and use them to their own advantage. And they're not going to be able to do that with the tzaddik. So therefore, just like what happened with Haman, that they're going to end up like having those negative consequences, even though they're trying to, I guess, like convert them into what they want.
Okay, so I need greater understanding of both halves of what you're saying, but I'm gonna start with the second half. Okay. Is if it's not necessarily what the tzaddik is doing, I'm wondering, is there a reason why you're not going with the first translation? That the Russia just will naturally stink and spoil or be ashamed?
Well, I guess I still see it as a direct relationship, but not, I think that originally I was thinking that it is the tzaddik dafka, like being like, no, like you're doing this wrong and like this is why it's bad. But I also think, and the reason that's why I ended up going with 2C, but I also think that just because his values are truth and are good, then it makes it automatically, even if he's not doing it, like I think I just see both, but I think that 2C fits what I'm saying better.
Okay, so then I hear that now. So then can you just explain to me again why it's talking about the tzaddik hating? Like, what's the connection between the two halves? I don't see that.
Okay. So what I was thinking, and I guess like you can let me know if it's not related to the same idea, but that what I was thinking is that I think before a person can become a tzaddik, there's this notion that like hate is a bad emotion and that it's just not something that you should ever feel. And I think that that's true to a certain extent, but I also think that just like with any emotion, if it's utilized in like the proper way, then it's not bad. So I think that that's like the way that some people think about it, but the tzaddik realizes no, like there are certain things in the world that you should hate. Like, yes, a tzaddik hates bad things and things that are false. So he doesn't have that conception of what I guess his own emotions should be, and it won't have a negative effect on him because it's not like he's going around being like, oh, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, but he's hating things that will lead him to have a better development, and not only him, but like his entire system.
Okay. So then one more follow-up question then. So why the emphasis on sheker specifically in the Russia? Because we have a lot of psukim about where the tzaddik is opposed to the Russia's actions, or just, or like doesn't like what the Russia is doing. So I feel like, yeah, why does this pasuk, I guess kind of like Ariel's question, what is the subject of this pasuk such that it's focusing on the tzaddik's hatred of the davar sheker, and the fact that the Russia is going to like, end up going bad. And also why the shame. I feel like the shame is and spoiling. Like, in other words, if it's just saying that the Russia is going to self-destruct, like we have many psukim about, and even like you could say that about Haman, so then that I would understand. But these two seem like two very specific consequences.
Yeah. I think that like just like my first response would be that I feel like sheker is likely the biggest trait, and you can totally obviously correct me, but I do feel like that's the Russia's like main trait because that's where everything else stems from. Like I
Mhm.
feel like you can't be a true Russia if
Right.
you aren't having a misconception of what the world is and therefore like
Mhm.
doing bad with it.
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah, I can't disagree with that.
I think the being ashamed part comes directly from that because I think like the whole like I was saying before, the whole goal of the Russia is to use everything to his own benefit and it's not for good. Like the Tzadik can use things to his benefit and it'll be for good, but the Russia is literally not able to do that because of his character.
Right.
So I think it's just a natural consequence. Like I think it makes sense that it says to be ashamed because the Tzadik by either directly or indirectly like showing the Russia why he's wrong or not falling to the Russia's like levels or whatever you want to say by hating him, then it's just like it makes the Russia, I guess maybe you can even say it makes him like question like subconsciously like his ego is like, well, you know, maybe he is right or like why is he not doing this? And it automatically makes him ashamed, just like anyone would be ashamed that their values were being questioned.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and say what I feel like Rabbi Moskowitz would say if I said this idea. Okay, and I've had this happen many times. Rabbi Moskowitz would say it's too complicated. Okay, and
I
by
don't feel like it's complicated.
okay, well, so here's how I'm experiencing the complication here. Okay, I feel like I'm seeing like elements of your idea, and I'm just for some reason not seeing how it's all coming together or why it's so specific in these things. It's just not it's not clicking, and it's not necessarily faulting your idea. I'm not seeing the unity and the specificity.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's you can think about it a little bit more, and maybe either maybe you'll develop it or maybe someone else will say an idea that will cause you to like cause things to like click into place.
Well, I mean,
I can't even understand it
can't
enough
say, uh,
to put into words any part of it. So
okay.
think about it. Yeah. All right, Ariel.
Okay, so I kind of first want to like just take a step back and just like define Tzadik and Russia one more time.
All right.
Yeah,
Never a bad idea.
Start from the basics.
Yeah.
So a Tzadik, he's an individual who who cares about the system as a whole. Not just for his own immediate needs like a chacham, but also like the longevity and the greater system
Driving
as
the
a whole.
system.
And he's gonna do and there is an objective truth to that system,
Okay.
right?
Right.
And the Russia, it's like the total opposite. He's going to do everything in his power to destroy the system and only do things that's beneficial for himself.
Right.
Assuming the system is contradictory to what's beneficial for him.
Right. And it always will be because he in reality is just a part of the system, but he wants to be the system. He wants to be the system. Right. So
Right.
it's always going to be contrary. Right.
So I'm gonna just start with the second half of the idea, just because like that's how I was able to explain the first half. So the second half of
I
the
think what I
idea,
want to do. Hold on a second. I think what you said so far
I'm
is
sorry,
going to be
it's 2B.
okay.
And maybe it may also be 2A. I'm not sure, but definitely 2B.
Okay, so I just want to start off with what you're saying because I think what you're saying works really well for however whatever direction we take here. So the tzaddik is devoted to the welfare of the system, and his values must therefore be rooted in truth, because otherwise how can you like know how to help the system? Okay. Okay. In contrast, the Russia cares only about his own power, glory, and success, to the detriment of the system. Okay. And his values must be predicated on falsehood, which I think is what Rifki was saying also. Since in reality, he is just a part of the system, not the purpose or the sum total of the system itself. Okay, good premise. Okay, so then you're going with 2B for now.
Yeah, for now. It may lead into 2A.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
But definitely 2B.
Yeah.
And I want to say that the Russia's gonna make other people stinky,
Yeah.
or spoiled, and be ashamed. And I think there are and I think by nature, it's like whenever like you see a movie when someone persuades someone to do something they shouldn't do, and like people look at him, oh, like how could you do that? That's spoiled. He's spoiled now, and he himself is ashamed about what he did. So I want to say that his meaning him being around the Russia, or not, or may take the Russia's advice, and the Russia's advice is only there to hurt the system, and he's using that advice or whatever it is to do evil on the system, and ultimately people will recognize that that's not the right thing to do, and your reputation now, or your whole persona is now going to be affected from the people. And now you could have just stopped there, but then the pasuk went ahead and said he's going to be ashamed. I want to say that he himself will be ashamed, like that's internally.
Okay. Oh, so hold on, just let me make sure you're exposing ambiguity in the way I'm translating all these things. Hold on just a second. But Russia makes the tzaddik stink or spoil and be shamed. I'm just trying to find the English words. But in other words, the translation is he causes shame in others, and he causes spoilage and causes shame in others. You can't say he causes spoilage in others and he feels ashamed. I can't tell if that's what
not the Russia. The Russia doesn't feel ashamed.
Okay, so then let me just ask you this question before you explain it, because I lost this somehow. Who is the pasuk talking to?
It's talking to it's not talking to the Russia, not talking to the tzaddik. It's
talking to like members of the system who are going to be
members of the system. Yeah.
Okay, right. All right, go ahead.
So the members of the system will view an individual who was affiliated with the Russia as someone who is spoiled, and that individual who is spoiled will be ashamed of his actions, or his.
Okay, so let me just see if I got you correctly. So the Russia is going to persuade other people in the system to do things which are not for their best interests. And when that happens, then their like reputation will be ruined. That's the spoilage, and they will feel ashamed. And they will therefore feel ashamed. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
The truth is, I also had the thought, to say that maybe it's not that he will feel ashamed, but somehow other people, the same members of of society would shame him also. But again, like if you go that route, I don't know what the difference is between spoil and but so that's why I kind of did this, because I don't know, it is unless it's not okay within the translation, like I don't
No, it works with the translation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I let me just take a stab. This is not a stab at a full idea, but I just want to go off of what you were saying for this first part. What I thought you were going to say is that because the Russia is only concerned with his own glory, right? He wants kavod for himself. So spoilage and shame are the two ways that you bring down the Russia is going to want to bring down other people in terms of kavod. And the only way to, in terms of honor and glory and esteem, and the only way he could do that is either internally or externally. He could destroy their reputation, that's the spoilage, or he could make them question their own worth and like, and goodness. So
yeah, I think I think that's kind of implied with what I'm saying, because like, I think if he would just outwardly do that, it's like if I were to see someone just spoil his name just by talking bad about him, like I wouldn't, like, the observer wouldn't really take that literally, or take it seriously, because he's a crazy guy, but like if he manipulates him or manipulates the situation where he himself will make himself do something stupid in his own, in the Russia's way, he's like affecting, it will ruin his reputation.
Okay. Yeah. Hold on a second. I'm just gonna write this and then compare the two ideas. That's yeah. Okay, so what I wrote here is, because the Russia's ultimate goal is his own kavod, he will go out of his way to bring other people's kavod down, either from without or from within. Therefore, if you are in the Russia's way, you need to be on guard against these two tactics. So what I'm saying, I'm not really saying how the Russia does this. I'm kind of leaving it open. The Russia is going to use whatever he can to ruin your reputation, or to make you feel like you're not as great as he is, and therefore you need to be on the lookout for that. You, unless I misunderstood you, were saying that he's going to be like manipulating other people into a position where they have this as a result.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I think so. Those are the two ways to take it. So, a question on both of our approaches here is I'm still kind of a similar question to what I was asking Rivki, which is I understand. Why did it give me two of these? All right, whatever. I understand that the tzaddik hates falsehood. That
Yeah. So can I explain the first half?
Yeah, and I understand why I understand the second half. I'm not seeing a unified subject here.
Yeah, so can I
Yeah.
I could try to explain the first half first, and then maybe the subject will just come out.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
But I want to say that, can you go back to the pasuk? Sorry. So I want to say that that the tzaddik, he will do, sinna is a very strong word. So I want to say that the tzaddik will totally remove any falsehood in the system, and even a hint of falsehood, he would remove it from his neighboring individuals, because that would undermine the system. So he's going to protect the system by protecting people's reputation who are in line with reputation.
Okay, I see now. Okay, good. So so the tzaddik hates falsehood so much that he will work as a counterforce to undermine these efforts of the Russia, and the tzaddik's hatred. So in other words, practically speaking, the tzaddik will strive to promote truth and uncover falsehood wherever it is. So now one last question is, if this is so we already answered this for the second half, but if the audience of this pasuk is like the person who's not a tzaddik and not a Russia, but just like one of these, like, members of the system, so then what is the first half telling? I understand what the second half is telling the audience of the pasuk. What is the first half telling the audience of the pasuk to do?
Right. So if I was an individual looking at the two, people to hang out with, it's possible that sometimes the tzaddik will do things to protect the system, and that in itself is just. He may do things that may seem, I don't know, it may seem unkindly to your average individual. So don't be fooled by, what he's doing, because the Russia can be very sneaky and manipulative and gets you on his side, but the Tzadik he obviously wants to decide, but maybe the mannerisms might be a little different.
Okay, so let me give you an example, which I don't know if this is the best example, but it's in my mind right now. Is we got to remember whenever we talk about systems, then like it could be any system, okay? And I'm not involved in this world, but I've heard that, let's say, like in various communities of social media, whether it's like on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, like people are trying to use falsehood to build like a Russia-like influence where they're building themselves as like the king or whatever, and bringing down other people. Like, and I'm sure it could get very vicious, So a person might make the mistake of allying themselves with the Russia, thinking that they can like ride the Russia to success, and they might not like the fact that the Tzadik is going to be against any false fronts or false advertising, but ultimately the Tzadik is going to be, they're never going to have to worry about the Tzadik doing what the Russia does, like using them and then like shaming them or like ruining the reputation, so like better to be with a person who is totally anti-falsehood, even if it kind of like destroys some of your illusions and some of your tools. But better to do that than to think that you can like trust the Russia to like let you ride to success on his derech.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, because maybe he may think that the Tzadik has nothing to offer because he's not like this great guy or whatever. Let's say you're in business or whatever, and like the Russia has a lot,
Here's another example of this. I mean, look at any of the totalitarian regimes, like let's say like Stalin, like like always erasing history and like covering stuff up that would make him look bad. So if let's say you're like second in command to Stalin, so you might think, oh, I'm on the good side, like I'm gonna be benefiting from like I'm Stalin's like second in command, so I'm gonna be benefiting from all of his ascent to glory. But that could turn on you as soon as he perceives that you're a threat to him, and he can just ruin your reputation and spread rumors about you. I mean, again, just not to go back to North Korea, but like to go back to North Korea, I think that was a thing that that I forgot how long ago, and it was within the last 10 years definitely, but one of Kim Jong-un's like maybe his like uncle or something like that, who was high up in the government, Kim Jong-un like got him like executed based on some sort of charges because he sensed that maybe there's going to be a coup or something like that, and he just like totally ruined the guy's reputation and got him convicted. So like you don't have to worry about that from a tzaddik, and to the contrary, the tzaddik is going to in many ways act as someone to protect you from these kinds of things because he's going to be like trying to defend the truth. Yeah. Ayala?
So another possible explanation, which is just different than this, not contradictory at all, but maybe another like possible thing based off of what Ariel's saying is that the Russia is gonna convince people, like the people who he's gonna end up like spoiling and making ashamed are not gonna realize that, like they're kind of gonna be blinded by him and think that he does have the system's best interest in mind, and that's why they'll end up being ashamed. But I think because of that, they may want to stick to the Russia, and like also specifically the Tzadik will be speaking negatively against other people, and they may be like, oh, well, he actually doesn't have the system's best interest in mind because he's spreading hate. But they're not realizing that he's actually spreading hate towards lies and will end up being successful in the end. And the Russia it doesn't have the best interest of the system.
Okay, that's actually really good. So people will be taken by the Russia's lies, okay, thinking that he is going to be that he's doing the best for the system, but those people will end up being ashamed. Meanwhile, the tzaddik might be speaking against the system, and people will think he's trying to bring it down. But ultimately, like his efforts to expose the Russia's lies are in the best interest of the system. Like, for example, Yirmiyahu prophesying that that Yerushalayim and the Mikdash are going to be destroyed, look to everyone like this is a guy who's like anti-Zionist, like he's saying that we're all evil and that this is going to be destroyed. But really, he's trying to get people to do tshuva, and that's in the best interest of the system. Whereas all the false Nevi'im were saying how like, no, Hashem is with us, and if you're a real believer, then you'll believe that nothing bad can happen to Yerushalayim, but those were the ones who were really working against the system. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, I like this approach. Okay, Noah, you're up.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm basically just reading one of the translations we read or how this got into my brain. But I am reading all of the verbs as acting upon the Dvar Sheker.
Okay.
And for the Tzadik to hate, that action would be something likely limited. That's why there's one verb instead of two. But you think of someone who just hears something not true and just shuts it down and says, that's not true. This is what's true. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. Like, I'm not engaging. I'm not drawing this out. I'm not playing your game. Whereas the Rasha says, oh yeah, that's good. And blows it up and out of proportion, stinks it up, digs it out in every direction, any possible way he can expand upon a lie for his own benefit, or just, because he finds it fun, he will do that. And I feel like, I don't know, I'm not ancient, I'm not very wise, but looking at people, you can watch how people respond to different information, and truth tends to be a little quieter. That's why it's like the universal maxim that everyone has, or a drop of truth can disrupt an ocean of lies or something like that. But yeah, that's what I'm reading.
Okay, so let me see if I can get this. Okay, so the Tzadik hates the Dvar Sheker, false thing, and will I think this is just part of the notion of hatred. It's not hatred means that you distance yourself from it, like that's it, and will not engage and will avoid it, not touch it with a 10-foot pole. The Russia not only doesn't hate it, but he will go into it and make it more stinky and more shameful and expand upon it. So that's what you meant, that both of these are going on how they relate to the Dvar Sheker?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right. Okay, let me state that at the outset here. So so the subject is how the Tzadik and Russia each relate to the Dvar Sheker. Okay, right. Okay, I like this reading. Right. So now the only thing I think I typed this by mistake. Make it more shameful. Well, do you have an interpretation of what it means? How it's using Yachpir? Or can you maybe give an example?
I was thinking about dig, and I feel like the reason that there are two verbs there is to show the excessive engagement and different directions. Because if you make something into a big stink, so to speak, that is different than I'm thinking of digging a pit, how they, criminals used to dig pits to trap people in or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I mean, biblically makes sense, but it seems a little strange in modern times. But literally just being there and digging it out and being like, oh yeah, you dug a little pit, let me make it even bigger.
Yeah.
Whereas stench is something that carries and spreads upwards, outwards.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I like that. So let me just think about let's just think about the implications here. Because I as a reading and as an idea, this is good, but let's just think about some practical implications here. And anyone could jump in and say. I guess who's the audience, and yeah, I guess it'll depend on who the audience is, and then what would be the practical implications.
People sitting around a table where somebody said something and other people are reacting, and
Okay,
someone
right.
has a big overblown dramatic reaction and someone seems to not have a reaction at all, but that non-reaction is a reaction of sorts.
Okay. Okay. So the practical application is how we respond to the checker. Okay. Are we going to like blow it up and make it bigger and more stinky? Or are we going to like nullify it like the Tzadik does? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good definitely Lashon Hara is a good practical application for this. That like you see the real vigilant anti-Lashon Hara people will just let the statement die. Like, if it's made, like they'll just put it to rest on the spot. And instead of finding like all these ways to like go around it. Okay, good. I like that reading. Okay. Ayala, you're up.
Okay. I'm not so like confident about this idea, and I'm not sure if I'm just like trying to stick it in. And it may be similar to Rifki's, but I'll try.
Sure.
So I'm going with translation 2C. And what I want to say is that the Tzadik, the reason that it's using like hate, which we were commenting was like an internal feeling, is because I think it's saying that like the Tzadik, based off of just the way that he acts and the way that you can tell he feels about what he's doing, like not an external action which he's like doing onto other people, but it's like an internal thing which he has, whole I guess hate false things, and through that it will make the Russia stink and spoil and be ashamed, and other people will be able to learn the right way. Like he'll be bettering the system by himself like hating negative or false things, because even though he's not being loud about it, just by like I guess kind of just being an example, it will like be clear that what he's doing like has truth kind of, and what like in contrast to what the Russia is doing, it will like make the Russia look bad.
Okay, can you give me an example? Because
Yeah.
like I know there's lots of examples of the Tzaddik doing like actual righteous activities, but here it's like somehow you're saying that the Tzaddik's hatred of the Dvar Sheker is visible to people and has an effect on them, which therefore causes the Russia to be stinky. So I just wanted an example of that.
Okay, so right, it could be I don't know if I specifically am saying that it's hating a false thing. I guess I'm thinking more of just like the Tzaddik's, like through the Tzaddik's actions, you'll be able to tell what he hates and what he likes, and like what he values and what he doesn't. Yeah, I guess I'm not really explaining why it's like hate. I'm more explaining like it's
Right.
his values.
Yeah. Okay, that was a good attempt, but yeah, I think that's the difficult thing about this pasuk is the Dvar Sheker is center stage, and this is also why just from a like reading the pasuk perspective, the Noah's I think satisfies that question the best, because it's saying like this is about the Dvar Sheker. How does the Tzadik react? How does the Russia react? And that's the advantage of translation. Whatever, I guess. Whatever translation is now. Yeah. I also had one more point here to add to what you were saying. Oh no, it wasn't to add what you were saying. It was I was trying to think in English the way we would say this. I always forget how to use the word. Can't you say like a false statement is anathema to a tzaddik, right? Like you describe the thing as like hatred provoking, I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but like that would be like the way to preserve the order here. But anyway, okay, Mayan.
Yeah. I didn't really have an idea as myself as much as it's a question.
Sure.
Kind of exactly what you were just saying about like reading about the pasuk. Can we go back down to I don't remember whose idea it was. I mean, was it actually Ayala's like first idea, but it was kind of an extension on Yosef's, or was it an extension? Oh no, it was your own, right?
I have Ayala as an extension on Ariel's and my idea.
Okay, yeah, amazing.
Maybe I didn't write something else in. Yeah.
Yeah, can we just explain how it goes with I understood how it goes with Yachpir, but I didn't really understand how it goes with the stinking.
Right. Let me just get my mind in the headspace of this idea again. So I wrote down the phrase Ayala used, and maybe I misunderstood it, of that the people will end up being ashamed because they all trusted that the Russia was doing what was best for the system, and then it turned out that he was only doing what was best for himself. Ayala, is that what you were saying? Do you remember if that was what you were saying?
Yeah, I think I was adding on to Ariel's idea. Like, I think that part was just Ariel's
Right,
idea
of
still.
like persuading people to like act in a certain way, and then like they see like, oh, we were just helping, all we did was just help the Russia advance his own goals, and we got left with nothing. So like that's the shame.
Right. So I see that for the shame, but I'm saying I don't see that for the
for the
for
spoilage?
making smell bad.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I also don't see that so clearly.
I just feel like it's a very new adjective.
Yeah. I feel like what I heard from Ariel was more of like in particular cases, then he'll ruin their reputation. That's why I was drawn to like saying like, no, the two things he's going to make people do is he's going to spoil them in other people's eyes, and he's going to make them feel ashamed. Those are the two ways to knock someone down kavod wise, is you puncture like their own ego from within, or you make people like look down on them from outside. That's why that's what made me make my move.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on, I think, on Ayala's approach really quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Don't we see it from like Yaakov and Esav, where like Yaakov, like didn't wait for Esav for whatever because like he hated him? Doesn't someone say that?
Yaakov didn't wait for Esau because he hated him.
Yeah, like he moved up, meaning like instead of them walking together, you don't remember that?
Maybe I do. I'm not sure right now what you're referring to.
All right, I'll find it for you. You can continue.
Okay. Okay, so I don't have an idea here, except for what I expressed with Ariel. Let me just think for one more second. I had an idea when we were doing the translations of the pasuk itself. Tavus Sheker Yisnat Tzadik. Russia Yavish Viach Pierre. Tzadik. Yeah, I don't have. I think my mind's still going according to the way Ariel and I were explaining. So let's look at some of them before and see if they help us here. Okay, so let's look at Rambam Yona. Tzadik gam ki lo le'ezer v'toeles im yariv es ish lo yecharfehu b'sheker v'lo yisaper lav lashon shav. You know what? I'm going to do what I always do, which is I want to look at my good Rabbeinu Yonah. Make sure that this. I'm always suspicious of this online one not being the correct text, because I know there's multiple versions of the Rabbeinu Yonah. Okay, so 13:5. Rabbeinu Yonah says, "Hatzadik gam ki yihye lo le'ezer v'toeles im yariv ish." Okay, so if the tzaddik, even when he is being of assistance and benefit, if he goes to quarrel with someone, lo yecharfehu b'sheker, he will not insult him with falsehood, v'lo yisaper alav lashon shav, and he will not speak in vain or speak falsely about him. In other words, he's not going to resort to lashon hara. Meaning sometimes tzaddik is going to have to be antagonistic, but he's not going to resort to lashon hara. Okay, that's strange. But mian rosh pasuk lamed misofo, and the subject of the first half of the pasuk can be learned from the end. Russia yabish es oivo omish yiskanebo l'saper sheker alav ulhavisho b'nei ha'adam ha'am. The Russia will will spoil his enemy or make his enemy spoiled, and or the person who he's jealous of, by speaking falsely against him and ruining his reputation in other people's eyes. V'yachpir v'yavish habrios b'divrei bizayin v'ketzef, and they will shame people with words of degradation and provocation. Right. So in other words, I'm not gonna do a word for word translation here. I'm just gonna do a summary. Okay, summary of Rabbeinu Yonah is even if a tzaddik needs to oppose someone, he will not engage in lashon hara or insults. Whereas the Russia will like try to ruin the person's reputation. Okay, so what I find interesting about this is like, what's the havmina? I mean, isn't it obvious that the tzaddik is not going to like speak lashon hara and try to ruin someone's reputation? Right? Isn't the first half obvious? Isn't the whole thing obvious? Right? So like, obviously a tzaddik won't speak lashon hara, and like ruin someone's reputation, even if it's for a good purpose. I think there's your hint, by the way. And obviously a Russia will. So yeah, Rivki.
No, I just have another question on it. Maybe this is
Yeah.
like asking, but are there, I guess it's not exactly what you're asking, because I feel like there are many times, and at least how I understood the pasuk was that it's speaking about the times where it's, I guess, like permissible to do that. And we have like times like
Right.
if a man is not giving his wife a get, then you
Yeah.
can speak lashon hara about that person.
Okay, right. Okay, good. So I do think that that's where the chiddush is going to be. Okay, which is that it's not obvious. Okay, that's the answer, right? There are times when it is permissible to insult or speak lashon hara about someone, but Mishlei is telling us that even in these cases, the tzaddik will not make recourse to that. Now, I don't know if that is something that is going to be always the case, but it's certainly saying that the tzaddik is going to hate that, So now let's think about that then. Like, why is the tzaddik going to hate that? And I'll give you a hint. Why? It's mutter. It's permissible. And beneficial.
Well, I mean, hold on, let me raise my hand.
Yes, Ariel.
Okay. So, I mean, you could, I mean, if you say it's permissible, it's beneficial, it's almost like it's like people make a habit of it, and at a certain point, where do you cross the line?
Okay, I think that is a valid answer. I think there's a more immediate danger, because you're saying really that he might do it in this case. In this case, it might be justifiable, but in future cases, it's not going to be. Okay.
Do you think there's more immediate danger?
I think there's an immediate danger, right? Which is that the tzaddik is aware that whenever you like insult and speak lashon hara about someone, you are giving in to bad, like I guess let's just say this under heading bad midos. Okay, right? Like ego and aggression and like the power fantasy of speech, right? There's like the in the parak of Tehillim, was it 12? Lil shaninu nagbir sivsemitana mi adon lanu, right? Like our we will rule with our lips or with our tongues. Our lips are with us. Who is the Lord over us? So in other words, like, I think the average person who sees a matir, who sees like a halachic license for lashon hara, gets very excited and just goes all out. Like, oh, God says I can do it, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. But like the tzaddik recognizes, yeah, there are certain things where like you're allowed to do that. For example, if you are a soldier and the Torah gives you the permission to eat non-kosher food when you're going to war, like go ahead, go all out on that. The Torah says, I was just quoting that someone recently about the Torah says, when in Sefer Devarim, when Klal Yisrael are going into the land, and it says you'll find houses filled with all sorts of good things, lim kol tuv, and Chazal say it's referring to like bacon, or like pork, so like yeah, it's all good, it's kol tuv, you can eat it, right? But like if the Torah gives you license to do something, like let's say the Torah gives you license to like beat someone up, only someone who is either a Rasha or is someone who has bad midos is going to just enjoy like giving into that primal animalistic part of themselves and like beating someone up, So this is like that because whenever you speak Lashon Hara about someone, you're awakening all of these like very, very volatile, egocentric parts of yourself and aggressive parts of yourself. And the tzaddik is not going to want to indulge that. And if he ever does it, you're going to have to force him to do it. And an example of this, I mean, I think, I don't know where I heard this. It's definitely from one of the Rabbeinu in our yeshiva, but this is, the classic. I'm going to read it so I don't have to quote it by memory. When Yaakov lies to his father, there's the famous Rashi.
Yeah, didn't Rivka have to force him?
Yeah, right. So first of all, Rivka had to force him. And when he finally did lie, it says, so the pasuk says, this is in Berashit 27:32. V'yomer lo Yitzchak, v'yomer lo Yitzchak aviv mi'ata. So Yitzchak said to him, who are you? V'yomer, he says, Ani bincha b'choracha Esav. I am your son, your firstborn Esav. And Rashi says, oh, I thought it was a Rashi. Isn't there a Rashi? What? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Where he technically doesn't lie.
Yeah, right. Where technically doesn't lie.
I am your son.
Yeah.
Esav is your firstborn.
Exactly. Yeah. Is that not? Is that Rashi?
It is. There is a Rashi. Yeah, that's a Rashi.
It's got to be in this pair. Oh, here we go. Yeah. 19. Okay. Sorry. It was earlier. Sorry, I read the wrong pasuk. 27:19. V'yomer Yaakov el aviv anochi Esav b'chorecha. I am Esav, your firstborn. Rashi says anochi hamevi lecha. I am the one who brings this to you. The Esav hu b'chorecha. And Esav is your firstborn. So I think you read that for the first time and you're like, oh, it's just like playing games. Like he's a real Yaakov. He's a real deceiver. But I've heard the example. That basically like even when he's forced to lie, he's trying to deviate from the truth as little as possible. And so the idea is like it's showing his reluctance to twist, to twist this. So I think the idea here is that if you are that I think Rabbeinu Yonah is bringing out is there are situations where either halacha permits you to lie or you're forced to lie, and the average person would just jump at that opportunity and just like dive head in and just like have at it. But the tzaddik will hate the distortion of truth. He'll hate giving into those midos. He will hate like there's also like social ramifications. Like let's say people see him insulting somebody, that's gonna stick with him as well. No one's gonna want to get on his bad side. Like there are lots of ramifications. And I think the point is that like someone who is not on this level might think of Mishlei ideas about lying when it's usser, but when it's mutter, they'll just throw all the Mishlei thinking out of the window. And this is saying, no, don't do that. Like there are big dangers here. Yeah. All right. Anyone want to add to this?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna talk about kind of like the social ramifications that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
I think that like it definitely says a lot in terms of like how other people are gonna view the tzaddik.
Yeah.
Especially because the tzaddik is like, I mean, if you are doing things for the benefit of the whole system, you're gonna want to be a role model. You want people to like look after and like emulate like the kind of things you're doing. So if you're lying, even if it's a case that it's mutter, then people are gonna continue doing that when it might not be. But also it got me like thinking about like fallacies, and it might have people perceive like it might make people think that what you're arguing for is like less legitimate than what it is. Meaning like
Right.
if you're, yeah, okay, yeah, I don't even need to give an example. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, no, there's a good example, right? Yeah, or that's a good avenue, right? So there are many other avenues where the tzaddik, in order to uphold his tzedek in other areas, like forget this area, but in other areas, he needs to maintain his attachment to truth and promote that for other people. Yeah, Rivki?
Yeah, so I'm struggling with this concept because I think that to me, like the first thing I thought of when you said this was that it makes sense that the tzaddik wouldn't do this because he is like the leader of the community, and then if he does it, then like everyone is going to do it, and then they won't have the same like restraint he has.
Right.
So that makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is where I'm confused is that, well, let me just think how to express this. That sometimes because it's not only permissible, but it's needed. So I guess what I'm asking is that, is this, because it sounds like I feel like it's very black and white the way that you wrote it. So like, I just feel like it would be bad for the community because like say the example I gave before, if a man is literally being abusive to his wife in whatever way and he's not giving her the get, then the tzaddik should, it's not about being permissible. He should speak out against that. Like, I don't really consider that to be lashon hara, and then it's setting a bad example for people in that way.
Right. So that I don't think, I mean, this is Mishlei, right? So Mishlei is not telling you rules, it's telling you like principles, right? So I think the principle here is that the tzaddik hates a devar sheker. Now there may be times when a tzaddik needs to engage in a devar sheker. That's why I was going with the Yaakov example. But just because he needs to do it does not mean that he's going to do it in a like free for all type way. Like let's say like you have a case where the guy is not giving his wife a get, and the tzaddik, and Ramosha Feinstein needs to go and like insult the guy in public, right? Ramosha's not going to go home and like go on the internet and like spam the guy's like YouTube account with all these like mean comments and or just there is if anytime you see this eagerness to engage in insults and falsehood, that's not the meat of a tzaddik. The tzaddik will do it in a measured, targeted way.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's a good clarification question. Yeah, Mayan, you want to add to that? Or you have another?
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. I also think that like when a Russia is lying or being deceptive or whatever it is, it's usually done in a way that like they know that they're going against what people would see as like the honest way, and it's like very sneaky. It's usually like hidden. I feel like if a tzaddik is like has to do something that's against his usual morals, he wouldn't necessarily hide it. He'd be like, let's say if you're speaking about someone who's being abusive to his wife, would you say like, I wouldn't normally speak about blah 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 whatever, but in this situation, this is not something we can ignore, like something like that.
Yeah, he's not going to be sneaky and go behind the scenes. He'll put his money where his mouth is, and
exactly.
He'll own it, as a decision, right? Yeah, that's good. Okay, I actually, as tempted as I am to go into more Mefarshim, I think we have so many ideas tonight, and we are past our usual time. So let's actually just wrap it up here. And we can continue discussing it throughout the week on the chat if need be. So we had Yosef's idea at the beginning, which is that that it's really talking to the tzaddik and saying that as much as it's basically saying, even though the tzaddik hates a false statement, he has to be wary of the Russia, and he has to learn the ways of falsehood. You have to know your enemy and know that the Russia could really bring you down if you don't school yourself in the art of using falsehood for war. And you need to guard yourself against the Russia and make sure that doesn't come back to bite you. Ariel's idea and my idea were about really stemming from our Mishlei definition of the tzaddik and the Russia. So the tzaddik's foundation is truth, because you need truth in order. The objective truth of the system has to be at the forefront of the tzaddik's mind in order for him to be a tzaddik. And falsehood in any area of the system generally will impede his ability to do what's best for the system. And the Russia must build his evil on a foundation of falsehood because he wants to make himself to the best. Ariel was taking the approach of that the Russia will use falsehood to manipulate people into doing what's good for him, and then that will lead to results of shame and spoilage, however that works. And I was taking the approach of the Russia will directly use falsehood to to basically do assassinations of people's character, either from inside or from outside. And the practical approach will, the practical application of this is that people need to be aware that this is how the Russia operates, and they need to align themselves with the Tzadik, even if it seems like the Tzadik is doing things that are, speaking harshly or like, not, Tzadik will often criticize elements of the system for the sake of the system as a whole. And the Russia, you need to be aware that he's going to like put up a false front and say that he's doing this in the best interest of the system when really it's not. The more I talk about this idea, the more I realize I think this is a true idea, but it also is not an elegant explanation of the pasuk, to me at least. I feel like it's not getting to the heart of why the pasuk focuses so much on Devar Sheker and spoilage and shame. Unlike, for example, Noah's and the Rabbeinu Yonah's do focus on that. So Noah's idea was that it's how each of them relates to the Devar Sheker. The Tzadik hates it and distances himself from it. And therefore, like, Sheker, it's like the don't feed the trolls type thing. Sheker only gains power by people feeding it and giving it attention and giving it airtime. Tzadik will just not give it the airtime. But the Russia will dig it up and make a big stink about it and like, revel in it. And the Russia will probably do it for his own reasons, whether it's like our Mishlei agenda type reasons or his own aggression and wanting to see people suffer, for his satisfaction. And then Rabbeinu Yonah's idea is about that Tzadik, the Russia will use Sheker to bring people down as a standard tool. The Tzadik, even when he has to use that tool, will be very reluctant and will have a very circumscribed approach to it and not use it because he knows all of the bad mitos that he's going to awaken in himself and indulge in himself. He's going to know the addictive potential, like Arya was saying. He's going to know the like bad role model examples like Mayan and Rifki were saying. And so he'll just use it very, very minimally. It's a very, very powerful weapon, and he won't use it willy-nilly. Okay.
Can you go back to the pasuk really quickly?
Yeah.
All right, I just want to. Thank you. I'm going to send it to Zach.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Good ideas. Very difficult pasuk to read, but I'm really, it's tantalizing. I would like to think and see if we can come up with a good explanation for each one of these 5 translations, because it's this is a great example of several things. Oh, actually, I want to do one thing before we go. But first of all, I just want to say this is a great example of how you really have to learn Mishlei in the Hebrew, because like there are you're just automatically losing out on the nuances and different ways to read it if you read it in the English. And any English translation you use is only going to give you one of these. The other thing I want to do is I want to read to you what is one of my favorite Me'iris in all of Sefer Mishlei. I don't know if he says this in multiple places. Oh yeah, he does apparently. He says, I already explained this in 12:15. So he says, Shehodasa davar hara shehura chatzi hatochachas. Informing someone that something is bad is half of rebuke. V'chein hahodasa davar hatov shehu tov hu chatzi ha'ara. And informing somebody that something is good is half of advice. V'chein Shlomo b'rov devarav lo yavou devarav tzivui muchlat. Therefore, Shlomo HaMelech, in the majority of his statements, will not have any explicit commandment. Aval hoda al hadavar hatov shu tov. He'll just tell you about something that's good, that it is good. L'ha'ir ha'adam lasos, in order to like awaken a person that he should do it. V'hoda al davar hara shu ra he'ar lihimanea me'asoso. And also he'll tell you about something bad, that it is bad, in order to motivate a person to avoid it. So that was in my my article. Let's see if I edited this one on the current Substack. Without shoulds. I called it Musar without shoulds and shouldn'ts. Okay, so I didn't update this, but basically it's why it's my theory about why Shlomo HaMelech doesn't tell you you should do this or you shouldn't do that. He usually just tells you what the good is and what the bad is. I don't know where the he's going to go with this. I guess he's going on the first half. He's just saying the Tzadik hates a Devar Sheker, so he doesn't need to tell you don't lie or don't like don't engage in any sort of falsehood. He just tells you the Tzadik hates it, and then that gets us to think oh, why would the tzaddik hate it? And then we have all this discussion about how the tzaddik hates it, and it just ends up being much more fruitful in terms of your own development. And that's what I always say in these Mishlei shiurim anyway, which is like, let's say we don't get any interpretations of the pasuk. The very fact that the pasuk is making us talk about the subjects in each half is itself developing us mishleically, even if we don't get a final interpretation, but this time we did. Okay, very good. Just to let you know, next week we should be on. The week after, if all goes as planned, I will be in some lone cabin on a cabin retreat in the middle of nowhere. So we will not have Mishlei on the 25th of December. Okay. But next week, as far as I know, we should have Mishlei. Yep. Okay.
5th of September. Isn't that like someone's birthday or something?
That's what a lot of people say.
But that's wrong. That's wrong, right?
It's Varshaker, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Rosh
The
Hashanah.
pagan festival that was co-opted.
Pagan
Yep.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Thanks for coming tonight, everybody. Have
See
a
ya.
good night.
Thank you so
you.
much.
Have a good night.